Well, we just saw another person transported by medical personnel on a golf cart. No idea if they were a victim of the shooting or the trample that happened afterwards when people were trying to get away and people fell down. But at any rate, they just took a gentleman away on a golf cart with receiving medical attention. It did not look like he had been shot. The situation is very fluid. They continue to have ambulances here. Some have gotten filled with people and left, and others are staying here, but they're not leaving. Obviously a massive police presence, although there was a very big police presence all day long today as they sat around and stood around and answered questions if people needed it. And immediately they rushed toward the shooters. I couldn't see the shooters because of the people that were coming at me. Again, I was about 35 yards away from when it happened, but police officers from all directions ran that way, and they ended up tackling a couple of people, it appears, but that's the way it looked to me. I didn't see it happen that way. I saw the aftermath of police officers, multiple police officers on people, subduing them, and then they were taken away. One looked like he received medical attention, and he was taken away. Whether they are suspects or not, I don't know. But in the aftermath of it, for probably 30 minutes, people have been walking around trying to find their families. I don't see any of those people now, but they were adults. I didn't see any children unattended or crying or anything like that. But people were walking around trying to use their phone. Obviously, the phone wasn't working because everybody was calling at the same moment. But I think people are able to reconnect because the phone service is back up. But there were people angry people coming over and yelling at our photographer. A guy tried to pull his camera off his shoulder, and when I went over and confronted him and said, "Hey, you don't need to do that," he shoved me down. Came up and said, "Hey, we'll arrest him." It's a very, very emotional situation for a number of people, and there are people over here now that are just so angry and frustrated that this happened, because everybody understands what this means. Forget what happened up on stage. Forget all of the fun and the great emotion, positive emotion. What's going to go out is going to be that it's a shooting, another shooting, and it's going to be perhaps, I hope not, but it's perhaps going to be a black eye for our community, because that's going to be the headline around the world. 700,000 people or whatever it was, and there was a shooting at the end of it. I don't know who was injured. All I can say is this: I'm glad it was not as bad as it could have been. I mean, this was a situation with all those people packed in, and it sounded like a string of fireworks going off. I don't know enough about guns to know if that's an automatic or a semi-automatic weapon, but a lot of bullets looked like they were fired, and as we saw, there were a number of people hurt.
So stay on that thought just for a moment, Neil. You said it sounded like a string of fireworks. If you were to, are you talking 10, 15, 20 shots? Something like that? Or
I think so, and my photographer's agreeing with me. I'd say it was like that, a string of maybe 20 fireworks, and it went off over a period of a few seconds, and it happened right there. I was standing right here, and the gunfire happened on the other side of that red fire truck, and hundreds and hundreds of people came running at me, and it was crowded where I was, so they had nowhere to go. It was utter terror. And when you consider, and I keep going back to this, when you consider that you had so many families here with strollers and toddlers and 5-year-olds and 7-year-olds and 8-year-olds, and you're trying to get them out, you hear that, you don't know if it's a gunfire. All you know is that it's bad, and people were running. And now I'm told that there is another patient coming out of that area and is going to be brought to ambulance. We'll see if that is the case, but they have not cleared the scene. There are still a lot of emergency workers, and there you see somebody on that yellow drape on a gurney who's being wheeled over to an ambulance. So I